I don't know what Memphis was like because I was so small when I left there. I don't even remember being there. I don't know. It's a very tiny place, what I saw. When I went back to the home where I was born and where I can't say I grew up there because we went to Buffalo from there. I guess when I was maybe about 2 or 3, maybe. I'm not sure. My dad always encouraged me to sing. Many times I was too small to be seen, so they would put a chair there, and I would just stand on top of the chair top and sing at the Sunday night broadcast or the Sunday morning services. I started out playing by ear, and my dad wanted me to take lessons, and I didn't want to take lessons, so I would run and hide every time the teacher came and hide in the closet behind the coats. Once I thought she was gone, I would come out. But I wish today that I had have taken the lessons. Now I plan to go to Juilliard sometime soon and hopefully do at least a couple of years there. So I really wish that I had have learned the fundamentals then. I sung in the junior choir, and I was one of the lead vocalists for the choir. I played piano for the choir occasionally, and customarily on the road when my father would go on the road and have services in major auditoriums and arenas across the country. I would precede him singing, and then he would minister from there. I had had the occasion to meet Sam Cooke, who came to one of our gospel presentations after church that we would have regularly on Sunday evenings. And after meeting Sam and listening to him, and he left the gospel field and began to record for SAR, SAR Records. That was Sam Alexander and S.R. Crane, who was one of the soul stirrers, and he also was Sam's manager. And Sam had such great success in leaving gospel, or certainly broadening his horizons. I wondered if I could do the same thing. I wondered if I could be as successful singing secular music as gospel. And so I talked to my dad about it, and he said, if that's what you want to do, by all means. Well, there's a lot of rehearsal involved, certainly. Many hours spent rehearsing, learning the lyrics, and so on. Presentation. Charlie Atkins, who just passed about 2 weeks ago, was my very first choreographer. And pretty much coming up, it was choreography, lyrics, and selection. I recorded for Chess Records, with whom my dad was affiliated, and in concert out in the Oakland Arena in California. We had services there, and my very first recording really was Precious Lord Part 1 and Part 2. And after that, there were a few things for the Chess label prior to Columbia. And Columbia in 1962, I was brought to the company by John Hammond, forgive me, and I did an audition for Mr. Hammond in a little small room, just a little larger than this one, with a piano. And my manager at the time, Joe King, who took me over to Columbia, my dad, who somewhat put a rhythm section together for me, people that he knew, As he and Art Tatum were very good friends, he would always go and see Art Tatum when he would come in town, and Art Tatum would come to church when he would come to town and have dinner at our home or something like that. But anyway, he knew some of the musicians, and so he put a saxophone player, and he called his friend. He asked him to put the rest of the musicians together. He knew the bass player, but he didn't know anyone else. So anyway, the bass player, Mule Holly, who was rather prominent in those days, put the rhythm section together, actually. He went and he visited Barry. He went to see Barry, and they met and they talked. And he didn't feel that Barry had the kind of distribution that he wanted for me. He wanted me to have national and international distribution. And at that time, Barry was just a fledgling label, really. He was not the Berry Gordy that we know today. And Columbia was suggested to him, and it was to my dad's liking, much better, Columbia, because they had national and international distribution and promo. Without the One You Love was one of my first compositions. And Bob Mercy at the time, who also did some things for Streisand, was on Columbia. We were both on Columbia at the same time. And Mercy arranged that. And I walked in the studio that evening, and the string players were there. I'd never had strings or anything on any of my records. And just to hear my music being played like that, it just broke down in tears. At Columbia, everything pretty much was arranged for me by Mr. Hammond. He would secure the musicians and arrangers, Bob Mercy, who was just magnificent in those days, and he probably still is. Clyde Otis did some of the production work in the early days. Ray Bryant did some of the production work, fabulous pianist. But the difference, I think the main difference was Jerry asked me to sit at the piano and bring in some things, where at Columbia they pretty much were telling me what to do rather than just letting me do. So I think that was the main difference. And I made the selections once we got to Atlantic. Yeah, it's standing up pretty good. It's standing up. That's what Jerry used to say. We would record, and sometimes we would be in there for maybe 4 or 5 hours, but the proof of the pudding for him was the next day. If it stood up and it sounded as good the next day as it did the night before, then he felt like we had something. First Grammy, I was not there. I wasn't even aware of what the Grammy meant. Jerry Wexler and Arif and Ahmed were there picking up the Grammys. I didn't know what Grammys were for maybe the first couple of years, 1 or 2 years. And somebody went, "Hey, you won a Grammy." And I did. Okay. And a Grammy is what? Well, I found out what Grammys were and what they meant. And, I'm very, very proud of the fact that I have a record number of them. Nessun Dorma, yes, I love that. That's one of my favorites. And yes, I love Puccini. Song to the Moon and some other arias that I'm learning, Doretta's aria and O Mio Bambino and things like that.